The sound of the metal spoon scraping against the bottom of the pot was like nails in Jiho's ears. His mother leaned over the small iron bowl, her hands trembling as she scooped out the last watery remains of corn gruel. The thin liquid slid into 2 chipped bowls, one for Jiho and the other for his little sister Hijin. She didn't bother to serve herself. Jiho stared into his portion. The broth was so pale it looked like hot water with flecks of yellow. His stomach growled loudly, but he forced himself to wait until his mother nodded. Only then did he lift the bowl to his lips. The warmth filled his chest but left his belly empty, a cruel trick of survival. Across from him, Hijin licked her bowl clean, her eyes wide and desperate. She was only 5, yet her ribs stuck out like bird bones beneath her gray dress. Their mother reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's hollow face. Her smile was soft, but her eyes betrayed the pain of a woman who had no more to give. Jiho glanced at the 3rd bowl on the table, untouched. His mother never ate first. More often now, she didn't eat at all. "Mama," Jiho whispered. "Aren't you hungry?" She forced a laugh too thin to hide the truth. Mothers don't get hungry, only children do. But Jiho remembered when his father used to sit at that same table, his laughter filling the small room. Then, one night, boots thundered outside, and men dragged him away for something Jiho never fully understood, just a careless whisper about the regime. That night, the table lost its balance, and so did their lives. Now, the silence was their only shield. Words could kill faster than hunger. Jiho scraped his spoon against the empty bowl, the hollow sound echoing like a warning. Tomorrow, he thought, there might be nothing left at all. Morning in the town came without color. Sun rose, but its light was smothered by a sky of gray smoke from coal fires and dust from the cracked roads. Jiho followed his mother through the narrow streets, his stomach aching already, though he had eaten only an hour before. Hunger in North Korea never truly left it, only dulled for a short while. Round them, people moved like shadows. Faces were pale, eyes empty, steps slow. No one greeted each other with warmth. A nod was safer, and silence even safer. The loudspeakers hanging from the utility poles screamed with the voice of the marshal, praising a country that Jiho could not recognize in the world around him. His mother lowered her head as they passed, pretending to listen with devotion. The marketplace was no market at all. Wooden stalls stood crooked, most of them bare. A few desperate vendors displayed handfuls of roots, dried weeds, or crumbling corn husks. Jiho's mother clutched a ragged scarf. She had hidden away for years. She pressed it into a vendor's hand in exchange for a half bag of rice that smelled of mold. Even spoiled, it was treasure. She clutched it to her chest as though it were gold. Jiho's eyes caught the soldiers standing near the edge of the market. Their rifles hung loose, but their eyes were sharp, scanning, waiting. He turned away quickly. He had seen what happened to people accused of stealing or hoarding. Sometimes they vanished. Sometimes their broken bodies were left for others to see. Yet something new caught his attention. Down the street, almost glowing under dim lamps, stood the bakery. Its windows were fogged with warmth, and behind the glass lay rows of bread, golden, thick, and unreal. The smell drifted faintly enough to make Jiho's mouth water. Bread was not for him, nor for his kind. It was reserved for soldiers, party members, and those with connections. For a boy with an empty bowl, it was only a dream. But that dream clung to him as his mother tugged him away. He kept looking back at the bakery window. The sight burned into his hunger like fire. That night, the hunger was worse than usual.
Ow.
The thin rice his mother cooked had vanished quickly, leaving only the sound of Jiho's sister crying softly in her sleep. His mother sat in the dark, her back against the wall, staring at nothing. He slipped outside, barefoot, into the cold night air. The streets were silent. Few lanterns flickered weakly in windows, but most homes were dark. He wandered without knowing where his feet carried him, until the smell caught him again. Warmth, comfort, life. The bakery. Jiho's heart pounded. He pressed his face to the fogged glass, staring at the loaves inside. They sat in neat rows, golden brown, shining faintly under the dim bulbs. His stomach clenched so hard he thought he might collapse. Before he realized it, his hand lifted. He knocked. The sharp sound echoed through the empty street. His breath caught in his throat. What had he done? For a long moment, nothing. Then the door creaked open. A woman stepped out, the baker's wife. Her face was lined with exhaustion, her eyes darting nervously around the street. When she saw Ji-ho, she froze. A starving boy at her door. Ji-ho's lips trembled, but no words came. He only stared at the bread behind her. Something flickered in her eyes. Pity, fear, or both. She whispered harshly, "Go home, child, quickly." Ji-ho didn't move. His body refused to leave. His empty stomach betrayed him. The woman's hands shook as she looked over her shoulder. Then, with a sudden motion, she reached inside and returned with something small, a crust of bread, rough and hard. She pressed it into his hands. "Never come back," she hissed. "If they see, we all die." The door slammed shut. Ji-ho stood frozen in the street, the crust warm against his palms. For a moment, the world around him faded. All that remained was the bread. He bit into it with shaking hands, tears filling his eyes. It was rough, dry, and perfect. Ji-ho crouched in the shadows of an alley, clutching the crust with both hands as though it might vanish. He took small bites, trying to stretch the miracle, but his hunger betrayed him. Within minutes, the bread was gone. It was the first time in his life he had tasted something so real, so alive. Tears burned his eyes. The joy didn't last. His stomach groaned, begging for more. And then came the guilt. Hae-jin, his little sister, still sleeping on the mat, her lips pale, her breath shallow. She hadn't eaten more than a spoonful of rice. Ji-ho wiped his mouth with his sleeve, ashamed. He had nothing left to give her. Only crumbs. When he slipped back inside their home, his mother was awake. Her eyes landed on him instantly, then on the crumbs around his lips. Ji-ho froze, shame burning in his cheeks. He whispered, "I'd found it." In the street. His mother said nothing. Only tears welled in her eyes as she reached for him and pulled him close. She didn't scold him. She didn't ask questions. But Ji-ho knew she understood. That night, sleep did not come easily. The sounds of boots echoed through the streets. Soldiers dragged a man from his house, shouting accusations of hoarding food. Ji-ho crept to the window and watched. The man's wife screamed until she was struck silent. The soldiers left him bloody in the dirt as a warning. Ji-ho trembled, remembering the baker's wife. What if someone had seen her give him the bread? What if his knock had doomed her? When the dawn broke, Ji-ho's hunger had returned stronger than ever. Worse than hunger was the memory of that taste, the warmth, the softness, the fleeting fullness. Now he couldn't forget it. It haunted him more than emptiness. For the first time in his short life, Ji-ho began to dream not of survival, but of something beyond the empty bowls and silent faces. And in every dream, the bakery window glowed like a forbidden sun. The next days blurred into a haze of hunger and fear. Ji-ho tried to push the memory of bread from his mind, but it clung to him like a shadow. Each time he passed the bakery, his eyes lingered, even when he forced his feet to keep moving. Then he noticed him, a soldier. Tall, broad-shouldered, his rifle slung casually across his chest. A long scar cut across his cheek, twisting his mouth into something hard and unreadable. At first, Ji-ho thought it was coincidence. But the man appeared again, near the market. Again, by the well. And once, standing in the same street as the bakery, eyes fixed on him. Ji-ho's mother saw it too. That night, she gripped his wrist so tightly it hurt. "Never look at a soldier," she whispered fiercely. "In their eyes, you disappear." Still the hunger gnawed. The memory of bread was stronger than fear. One evening, unable to bear it any longer, Ji-ho crept back toward the bakery. He pressed his face against the cold glass, heart hammering. His hand lifted to knock. The door creaked before he touched it. The baker's wife appeared, her face pale. She opened her mouth to speak, then froze. Her eyes widened in terror. Boots echoed on the cobblestones. Ji-ho turned. The scarred soldier emerged from the shadows. His steps were slow, deliberate. His gaze pinned Ji-ho where he stood. In his hands was a fresh piece of bread, still warm. Ji-ho's body went rigid. This was it. He had doomed himself, doomed his family. Soldiers did not forgive. Soldiers did not show mercy. The man's eyes lingered on the trembling boy. Then, to Ji-ho's shock, the soldier spoke in a low voice, almost a growl. "Go." Quickly, Ji-ho's heart lurched. He clutched the bread and fled into the night, legs burning, lungs on fire. Behind him, The soldier did not call out, did not follow. But mercy in North Korea was never simple. Jae-ho knew, with cold certainty, that this was not the end only, the beginning of something far more dangerous. The soldier's warning haunted Jae-ho. Each time he left the house, he felt the weight of unseen eyes on his back. His mother noticed his jumpiness and pressed him for answers, but he only shook his head. Telling her about the soldier felt too dangerous, like speaking the truth out loud would summon him. But whispers filled the town. A family at the far end of the street had disappeared overnight. Some said they'd tried to flee across the border. Others said they'd been dragged to the camps for hiding food. The truth didn't matter. The message was clear. Everyone was being watched. One evening, as Jae-ho walked home with a small bundle of firewood, a shadow moved in the narrow alley. The scarred soldier stepped forward, blocking his path. Jae-ho froze, every muscle locking with fear. "They're watching your family," the soldier muttered, his voice low and rough. His eyes flicked to the rooftops, the corners where neighbors might linger unseen. "Keep your head down, or you won't survive the winter." Jae-ho couldn't answer. His lips trembled, but no words came. By the time he blinked, the soldier was gone, swallowed back into the darkness. That night, Jae-ho's mother did something she had never dared before. After Hae-jin fell asleep, she pulled Jae-ho close and whispered, "There is a way out." Her voice shook, but her eyes burned with quiet fire. She told him about a man she once knew, a smuggler in the borderlands who guided desperate families across the Tumen River into China. She had kept the secret for years, waiting, fearing. Now, with soldiers circling and food gone, she believed it was time. Jae-ho's stomach turned cold. Escape was a word never spoken, a death sentence even in thought. He wanted to argue, to beg her not to risk it. But he saw his sister's frail body curled in sleep, her breathing thin and fragile. If they stayed, she would not live. For the first time in his life, Jae-ho felt the tug of two impossible choices: stay and starve, or run and die. The morning began with shouting. Jae-ho woke to the sound of boots, loudspeakers, and the dull thud of fists pounding on doors. His mother pulled him and Hae-jin close, whispering, "Don't move. Don't make a sound." But silence could not hide what the whole town was forced to see. Dragged into the square were the baker and his wife. Their faces were swollen, streaked with blood. The soldiers shoved them to their knees, while the townspeople were herded into a circle. "These traitors," the officer barked, "fed food to enemies of the state. They endangered the strength of our glorious nation." Jae-ho's chest tightened. His legs wanted to run, but his mother's grip held him still. He knew. His knock, his hunger had doomed him. The punishment was swift, brutal. The baker was beaten until he could no longer stand. His wife was dragged through the dirt, her screams echoing in the cold morning air. People kept their heads low, pretending not to see, though the soldiers forced them to watch. Any tear, any flicker of pity, could be betrayal. Jae-ho's eyes burned. He bit his lip until he tasted blood, trying not to cry. Beside him, his mother whispered so softly he almost missed it. "Remember this? This is what happens when we stay." Through the blur of tears, Jae-ho saw the scarred soldier again. He stood among the ranks, expression unreadable. For a moment their eyes met. Jae-ho searched for the same strange mercy he had seen before, but there was nothing, only the cold mask of a man obeying orders. By midday, the square was empty except for blood in the dust. The bakery's window, once glowing with warmth, stood shattered and dark. That night, Hae-jin grew weaker, coughing until her lips turned pale. Jae-ho sat beside her, holding her tiny hand. The weight of guilt pressed on him until he could hardly breathe. One knock, one crust of bread, and now 2 lives destroyed. It was then that he understood his mother's resolve. Staying meant death, slow or sudden. Running was the only chance, however slim. The air inside their home felt heavy, as though sorrow itself had seeped into the walls. Hae-jin lay curled on the mat, her breath shallow, her thin body shivering beneath a worn blanket. Jae-ho sat beside her, afraid to sleep, afraid she might stop breathing if he closed his eyes. His mother moved quietly, gathering scraps from the corners of the room, small bundles wrapped in cloth items Jae-ho hadn't noticed before. A few dried roots, a pair of worn shoes too large for him, a pouch of coins so old they seemed useless. She handled each as though they were gold. At last she sat down, her hands trembling, but her eyes steady. "Jae-ho," she whispered, "your father left me something before he was taken." A name. A man near the border who helps people cross into China. I never told you. It was too dangerous. Jiho's heart pounded. The word China sounded like something from a storybook, distant, forbidden, unreal. "Amma, if they catch us, they will kill us here anyway," she said firmly, though her voice cracked. "Your sister will not survive another winter. If we cross, there is a chance. If we stay, there is none." Her words struck with the force of truth. Jiho lowered his gaze, shame heavy on his chest. He thought of the baker's wife, beaten for one act of kindness. He thought of the soldier's warning. Everywhere was danger, but beyond the river, perhaps there was life. His mother leaned close, gripping his shoulders. "You must be strong, Jiho. Stronger than your hunger, stronger than your fear. I will need you." Tears pricked his eyes, but he nodded. That night, as the wind howled outside, his mother tucked the small bundles into a sack and whispered prayers he had never heard before. In the darkness, Jiho lay awake, listening to his sister's fragile breaths, wondering if she would live to see this journey begin. The river was waiting, and so was death on either side. The night was moonless, the kind of dark that swallowed even the shape of the mountains. Jiho's mother led them through back alleys until the town disappeared behind them. Every sound, the crunch of boots in snow, the bark of a distant dog felt loud enough to betray them. They met the smuggler near a cluster of bare trees. He was a gaunt man with sharp eyes, his face hidden beneath a wool cap. Without a word, he signaled them to follow. The air was so cold Jiho's lungs burned with each breath. His sister clung to his back, her arms limp around his neck. When they reached the Tumen River, Jiho's chest tightened. The water was frozen, the ice gleaming faintly in the dark. On the far side lay the land his mother whispered of China. Freedom, food, life. The smuggler stepped onto the ice, testing it with slow, careful movements. The families followed in silence. Jiho's legs shook as he edged forward, the ice groaning beneath his weight. Each crack made his heart seize. Halfway across, a beam of light cut through the dark. Soldiers' shout tore the silence. "Stop! Stop where you are!" Chaos erupted. Flashlights flared, dogs barked, rifles clattered as soldiers rushed to the bank. The smuggler hissed for them to run. Jiho's mother pushed him forward with all her strength. Gunfire exploded. The ice splintered, sharp cracks spreading like veins. People screamed, slipping, scrambling. Jiho ran, his breath tearing from his throat, his sister's weight heavy but precious on his back. His mother's hand gripped his shoulder, guiding, urging. The far bank grew closer, but so did the bullets. One man fell behind them with a cry that silenced instantly. Jiho dared not look back. His only thought was forward. At last, his boots scraped earth instead of ice. The bank of the river, the other side. His mother stumbled beside him, gasping. Behind them, the soldiers' shouts grew fainter, lost to the roar of blood in Jiho's ears. They had crossed. But freedom had never felt so fragile, so thin as the ice they had left behind. Jiho collapsed onto the soft earth of the far riverbank, snow clinging to his hair and clothes. Heejin lay across his lap, shivering but alive. His mother sank beside them, gasping, hands trembling, eyes scanning the dark for threats. Behind them, the frozen Tumen River gleamed like a thin line between life and death. For a long moment, they simply breathed, the silence of survival settling over them. No soldiers, no shouting, no hunger gnawing immediately at their bellies. Just the fragile, terrifying sense that they had crossed the border alive. A small figure emerged from the trees, a Chinese villager, cautious but curious. In her hands was a loaf of bread. She offered it without a word, and Jiho took it like it was the sun itself. The warm, fragrant bread broke against his hands. He could scarcely believe that it was real, that it was meant for him and not a soldier, a party official, or a stranger's eyes. He broke the loaf, giving pieces to his mother and sister. Haijin nibbled slowly, eyes wide, cheeks flushing for the first time in months. Tears streamed down Jiho's face, but they were not only from hunger, they were from relief, fear, and a fragile hope that had been denied to him for so long. His mother whispered, "This is only the beginning." Jiho understood. Freedom was not safety, it was uncertainty. It was a long road ahead, filled with risks, but it was theirs to walk. For the first time, he tasted something other than fear, possibility. The bakery window, the soldiers, the empty bowls, they haunted him still. But beyond that, a world waited to take place where he could grow, where his sister could live without constant terror, where a family could survive not just day by day, but with hope. He closed his eyes, inhaling the scent of bread, snow, and air untainted by fear. For the first time, he allowed himself a trembling smile. The night was still dark, but freedom glimmered faintly ahead. And Jiho knew, deep in his bones, that he had taken the first step.